So there's this report, and I encourage like literally every human being to read it as they are able. It's called Deep Adaptation, a Map for Navigating Climate Tragedy. It's made by the IFLAS,
What does that stand
the
for? Do you know?
Institute of Leadership and Sustainability.
I just put
I
a
don't know
link.
where the
I just
F
put a link
comes
for it in the chat for anybody who's listening live and wants to see it.
Link in bio. So basically, the conclusion of this report is that societal collapse is inevitable. It's going to happen, and there's just nothing that we can do to stop it.
Okay?
Okay.
But like, what's
So,
the 1-2 on that? Is it just like famine, then war over resources, then societal collapse?
And to make sure we're clear,
way he
like
put it
the
was like-
societal
or, I'm
collapse
sorry, I don't know if
as a result of inevitable
Jim put
climate
it-
change.
Yeah. There's no way to predict exactly what will happen or exactly when it will happen, but it's a near-term thing. So, like, the way they put it in the report is there will be a near-term collapse in society with serious ramifications for the lives of the readers of this report.
What's near term?
Well, I think they're saying within 10 years, there's going to be major changes. I'll read some excerpts and you'll kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I've got some highlighted sections here. We conclude that the climate-induced societal collapse is now inevitable in the near term, and therefore we invite scholars to explore the implications. Here's a little hard fact number kind of stuff.
Hard fact.
Hard fact.
Evidence of global ambient temperature rise is undisputable.
Mhm.
17 of the 18 warmest years in the 136-year record have all occurred since 2001. Do the math on
True.
that. That's like, yeah. The most surprising warming is in the Arctic, which is kind of important when it comes to warm stuff happening. The 2016 land surface temperature is 2 degrees Celsius above the 1981 to 2010 average. Get what I'm saying? So that's not good.
Right.
Yeah.
Non-linear changes. This is the important part. They're non-linear changes
Yeah.
are occurring with the climate. They're of central importance to understand the climate change, as they suggest both impacts will be far more rapid and severe than predictions based on linear projections. So a lot of the predictions you hear about are linear and saying that, like, okay, the current rate will continue.
Right.
But this report, through analyzing the body of scientific data, says it's not going to be linear. It's going to basically be like a wildcat explosion.
I was under
in
the
other
impression
words,
that
as they say,
we did think it was multiplicative. I thought that was like the prevailing thought on it.
That's kind of like a softcore global climate change denial stance, I guess. And this paper is just saying, nope, it's going to be runaway climate change, and it's going to get worse rapidly and like exponentially or logarithmically get worse. So they're saying clearly a massive campaign and policy agenda to transform agriculture and restore ecosystems globally is needed right now.
Mhm.
It would be a huge undertaking. We'd have to undo 60 years of developments in world agriculture. We'd have to conserve our existing wetlands and forests. It says this. It means the conservation of our existing wetlands and forests must suddenly become successful after decades of failure
Right.
across lands outside of geographically limited nature reserves.
So to sort of wrap my head around this, I want to understand like a brief summary of the introduction here is what this paper is saying is, okay, guys, we've been talking a lot about like what we can do to slow this down, what we can do to maybe reverse it, what we can do to survive. Just forget all that because it's not going to happen. It's too far gone.
Right.
We're just done.
They're not saying, it's important to understand this. They're not saying it's impossible. They're not saying that there's nothing we can do. They're just saying, if you look at everything that's happened and the situation right now, the chances that we will actually take all of these drastic steps that would need to be taken are almost completely nil. Like, it's just not going.
Which is
to happen.
reasonable because it's reasonable because like we should have taken those actions like already yesterday or before.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And not only
but
should
then
we have
didn't
done it,
have
but
any-
like nobody's even close to. We're not even close to being close to moving on this stuff.
No,
It's just nothing is happening, and it doesn't seem like that's going to change.
we never will because
we're
it's
basically
a collective action problem, and like nations aren't about that.
Right.
Oh, this report gets into that. So I'm used to my scientific reports and stuff. Scientists are just like very cold, in the way that they present data. Stuff are starting to get kind of like existentially philosophical because like they're starting to see that we're just like doomed. There's no hope. So this paper actually goes on to say, hopelessness and its related emotions of dismay and despair are understandably feared. but wrongly assumed to be entirely negative. The range of ancient wisdom traditions see a significant place for hopelessness and despair. So
right.
saying, like, we should just embrace the suck and like look for opportunities and silver linings to our hopelessness. In such context, hope is not a good thing to maintain. It can trigger a new way of perceiving self and the world, with hopelessness and despair being a necessary step in the process. It's kind of like the stages of grieving, you know, like you have to just kind of accept that you're doomed. This is a quote from Tommy Lynch, 2017. In abandoning hope, hope that one way of life will continue, we open up a space for alternative hopes. So, yeah. So now so then the paper goes on to say, like, you know, you might want to change your career. Like, for instance, this person stopped doing any research and stopped talking about like corporate sustainability or like corporate environmental concerns. So they said, I stopped researching corporate sustainability. I learned about leadership and communication and began to research, teach, and advise on these matters in the political arena. I began to work on systems to enable relocalization. So they stopped worrying about corporate stuff altogether, and now they're worrying about like how to make local governments and local communities prepare for when society collapses, how they could deal with it, how their own local currencies, prepare for like a wide stream, you know, mainstream societal collapse. How can we?
I think the societal collapse so like part is what keeps on losing me. Like, I understand the idea, but to say 10 years only.
Well, I think they're saying that there will be major effects within 10 years. It might not be complete societal collapse, but they're saying like, they talk about it in the. Hold on, I'll get to the. I'll just go ahead and jump to the ending. Okay, recent research suggests that human societies will experience disruptions to their basic functioning within less than 10 years due to climate stress.
Okay,
such disruptions include increased levels of malnutrition, starvation, disease, civil conflict, and war, and will not avoid affluent nations.
Yeah, okay, that's basically what I was saying, where you can, if you want to, drill it down to resources.
Yeah, I mean, there's pages and pages of like references and podcasts and articles and scientific studies that kind of back up all this stuff.
100%.
And one of the things they say, I can't find it right now. One of the things they say is like, we don't know exactly what will happen. We can't predict exactly what will happen. But we just know that stuff is going to go really bad and nobody's like talking about it enough. And we need to like just start realizing that it's going to go bad.
Why do you think it is that people are so unwilling to accept, I don't mean everybody obviously, but so many people are so unwilling to accept that things like this are a thing that are happening and they're real?
Depends on what level you want to go at.
Here's what I want to say something real quick, and I want to hear what Ryan has to say too, because I know Ryan has thought about this a lot. But I just want to throw this out there. I think first of all, what you're talking about is almost exclusively a USA problem, because everyone I've talked to from everywhere else in the world, nobody, like everywhere else in the world, nobody's denying climate change like we are in the USA.
They have different kind of denialism, but now, like climate change.
As the alt-right is starting to rise up in like other countries, the alt-right is kind of like trickling that around to other places. But in general, like other governments are not denying it. The problem is they're just not doing anything about it. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute, but I want to hear what Ryan has to say first.
Well, I'm basically doing the same thing as you just said, where like I would say our particular problem is that we got rid of oh man, I can't remember what it is right when I was going to say it out loud. We got rid of the fairness doctrine, though. That's what it is. Yeah, the fairness doctrine. Basically, we made it so that Fox News could be a thing. And once you do that, you can indoctrinate people way past when they normally like go to college, meet new people, and figure out things for them for themselves, or they stay home and they never do anything.
What is the fairness doctrine?
It was basically saying you can't do all this opinion shit on television and say it's news.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's a big problem in news, and also because what I thought of was the whole like false balance in news and everything like that, you know. And
like that's
well. So here's
part of the idea.
Here's the thing, though. Like even if the people are accepting climate change and all the rest of the world aren't doing anything about it.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if I really agree with that, because so I'm going to read one quick excerpt from the document, which kind of sums up my whole position on this. The West's response to environmental issues has been restricted by the dominance of neoliberal economics since the 1970s that led to hyper-individualistic, market fundamentalist, incremental, and atomistic approaches. By hyper-individualist, I mean a focus on individual actions as consumers, switching light bulbs or buying sustainable furniture rather than promoting political action as engaged citizens. By market fundamentalist, I mean a focus on market mechanisms like complex, costly, and largely useless carbon cap and trade systems rather than exploring what more government intervention could achieve. By incremental, I mean a focus on celebrating small steps forward, such as a company publishing a sustainability report rather than strategies designed for a speed and scale of change suggested by the science. By atomistic, I mean a focus on seeing climate change as a separate issue from the governments of markets, finance, and banking, rather than exploring what kind of economic system could permit or enable sustainability. So in my opinion, and not even just in my opinion, but in the opinion of some very, very intelligent people, including like Stephen Hawking and many, many global climate change experts, capitalism is the number one problem when it comes to global climate change. And what is it, like 70 or 80 companies in the world are producing like most of the carbon that's going into the atmosphere?
Yeah,
like,
sure.
You could very easily battle these problems by dismantling capitalism, but that's just not going to happen anytime soon.
That's
unless we
100%
get
not going to
on the ball,
happen.
get behind the ball on this.
Well,
But
I think
On an
like-
individual level, I feel like what I said like speaks to what Bobby said, but you're definitely right in like the societal level where like there's definitely an ingrained problem there. Not even just that, but like in a government sense where like one side wants to break it, another side, even you might not have the same opinion as me, but they're at least not trying to break it.
this is a big deal, obviously, and I'm not trying to minimize this problem and this issue and everything when I say this, but I think this is just one of a certain type of science denialism. Like, people aren't just being tricky and lying. Like, people actually believe that the science is wrong. They actually believe that there
I
is no
think you're-
climate change.
You're conflating two things there, though. You're conflating the individuals like our parents versus a company. Like, there's a very stark difference there.
I mean, like at the end of the day, I think the people who are in a position to do something about this, I would say that the vast majority of them on a global scale know what's up and they just don't care because they want
don't
to make
care,
profits. I don't think denial is. I think in the USA specifically, it's a problem just because we're not putting in pressure on our government because too many people don't believe in it. But if you look at almost any other country, the majority of people in like most countries, I could probably find statistics on this, but the USA is the only place where you have a huge, like, giant margin of people who deny climate change.
Right, but there
And
are,
if the rest of the
but you
entire
know, I think
world-
that's evidence for why I don't think you're right. I do think that people genuinely believe that climate change is not real, and that the reason that they believe that is because of their political ideology. There are big
Right, yeah.
companies that are incredibly profitable that are overseas, and those companies, those people that are there, some of them because of different political ideologies, they accept the fact of climate change.
I agree that individuals have these biases, be it worldwide or America. I would say it's mostly an American problem, but maybe it's also a worldwide problem. Doesn't matter though. I think that the actual causal, even if all the CEOs like all have this idea and they're all like, okay, yeah, I don't believe that climate change is really real. I think even if they did, the same net causes would happen, which is what we see play out in the worldwide scale.
So
I'm just trying to say like I get where you're coming from, but I'm also like I'm not even saying like necessarily we should blame people for their awful idiotic views. I mean, I think you should.
it's a problem, right? Like, people
Yep.
think that they know things that they don't, and they don't trust authority, or they don't trust things, and they build these ideologies, and they trust themselves more than they trust people who whose job it is to figure these things out.
Yeah, like self intel in the chat says a good way too, or like there is another level of it where it's like status quo, like
Yeah, that's fair.
for your average person, well, it's like not broken bystander effect, where it's like, okay, well, someone else is doing something about it. I care. I retweeted, but I'm not gonna go out on the streets.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. What to do about it is a whole nother thing. But you're right. That's sort of like a feedback loop, right? Like, what can I do about it? So there's that cognitive dissonance of this is a big problem that I should be doing something about, but I can't do anything about it.
EJ.
and in order to make myself feel better about this fact of my guilt of not doing anything about climate change, what do? Maybe I deny that it even exists. You know,
You stop using straws.
right? Exactly. You stop using straws, and that's another thing.
That was
like,
facetious. That was mean.
yeah,
But, yeah.
well, but that is another thing. Like also people look for things like that to jump onto to make themselves feel better because like this is something I can do. And a lot of times it doesn't matter. Like the big movement for switching light bulbs. You know, the research was done about of switching from incandescent to LED light bulbs. And let me preface this by saying I'm not saying that it's a bad idea to switch to LED light bulbs, but the research showed that when people would switch to LED light bulbs, their energy consumption would stay the same or sometimes increase because of just human nature and habits. When you get an LED light bulb, you're like, oh, well, now I can use it more because it uses...
Leave it on.
Right, exactly.
In the context of this report, we're already screwed, and what we as individuals need to do is prepare for it. And whether that means like making adjustments to your career, like the author of this report did, where they're no longer even concerned at all with like corporate sustainability because it's just not going to do anything, or whether we're like, I don't know. Like, do you like? Let me ask you, Bobby and Ryan. Like, I'm thinking about like, do we need to be stockpiling food and like literally going into this like prepper mindset?
Yeah.
It kind of feels like maybe we should. Does that sound? Do I sound like I've completely lost my mind? Or
No,
does that
you know, like my knee-jerk reaction is yes,
Sort of,
but when
yes.
I really think about it, I'm like, maybe not. I think that either way, it's a problem that that we should be worried about, but unfortunately, it's in the hands of people that we have little to no control over at this right now. But JBYC is going to do our best to solve the problem, and but until then, hey.